Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. As we get ready to roll, plenty to talk here. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic will be with us 20 minutes away in hour two. The good doctor from Chicago with Hail Varsity, Derek Peterson. Dr. Petey, he's all settled and set up in the Windy City. You got to see him at Big Ten Media Days. That was awesome. So, truth be told, we were roomies, and he had his setup of Air Jordans, which were really cool, that he wore at Media Days, and I made sure I didn't shake the room in this new hotel we were in, just right across from Lucas Oil, with my snoring. I tend to freight train it, just a touch. So Derek Peterson's with us. You can ask him, Elijah, if there was thought to use a pillow on me.
I've thought about it. That's why you're awake.
and we've never even been roommates before.
Yeah, thank God.
But just the normal wear and tear of a Monday through Saturday. You said, I bet you money his wife would give me the garage code, right?
Well, you made fun of the error at first in the celebrity softball game just one too many times.
You were really ticked off about that yesterday.
No.
I didn't take the picture. I didn't put it on social media. I didn't even retweet it. I just sent it to you. That's all right. So Derek Peterson's with us in an hour. And then Tuesday with Kaz, Rick Kaczenski going to join us. Some more thoughts on kind of his neck of the woods, Clemson and the ACC, and Clemson coming out yesterday, later in the evening, about saying, no, we're not shopping.
I would just like to add really fast. I was just thinking here while you were previewing the show, after that little bit we just had right there, if either one of us were to, pass away in mysterious circumstances, we would each now be at the top of the police's list of suspects. After
just the amount of time?
Just after saying I've thought about smothering you with a pillow while you're awake.
I see. Okay, well, yeah, just burn this tape.
We're not posting this one.
No, it's pay-per-view only, and you must, or pay-per-listen only, and you must sign something. We'll spend a little bit of time on the NBA just because of what LA is doing. Thoughts on the Big 12 as they warn about, you want to talk cord cutting. Oh, geez. The Big 12 and their lost TV revenue. And, are they just friends? Are they dating? What's the deal here between the Big 12 and the Pac-12? But our friends, they're part of the Hurrdat Media family, and they do just a hell of a job with their podcasts. Good folks, and we will run into them from time to time at a brewery. I think we were at Kincaid last fall. But the Big Redcast, Go Big Redcast, put out a question, good response on it. And let's dive into this. And let's spend some time on, the first six, right? We're getting to that point where it will be prediction time. Now, I'm not going to make a decision till I have to. I'm going to wait for a few more weeks of fall camp, and I know they're limited weeks as we get closer to week 0 with Nebraska and Illinois. But I need to see that there's 0 injuries, okay, before I make my prediction. Not that that's a thing you can control in season, but you know what you got to work with right before kickoff at 11 at Illinois. We're on the road for that road show for week 0 with Hail Varsity Radio, Friday and Saturday. So, listen, 6 games, Illinois, Fordham, Buffalo, OU, Sparty, Northwestern, and then to follow is Michigan. And let's just, you're going to run into that Husker fan. There's fewer of them that say, give me 6-0. You're going to run into that Husker fan that's like 5-1. And then you're going to run into a multitude that say, brother, it all depends on that opener against Illinois for what happens the other 5. What should be, what is, what's likely, what's excessive. So that's what we're trying to pinpoint here is, what's likely. I think it's likely Nebraska comes out focused, comes out hungry, comes out ready, comes out, dare I say, polished. No Kool-Aid here. And I know words are words, actions are actions. But I think they'll go play well, and I think they'll beat Illinois. Again, 3 weeks, no injuries. We're not seeing what's going on, but I like what I'm hearing, at least, right? That's what I have to go on. I like the experience. I like what is potential at quarterback, right? And I know what past history has been. Don't get too up or too hyped up or too much buy-in, because this team will rip the rug out from under you. And historically speaking, yeah, they've underdelivered. They've underachieved. And to a man, they'll look you in the eye and say that. Doesn't mean it's going to be that way forever. Doesn't mean it can't be that way with so many super seniors and 4-year veterans coming back. They realize it's go time. And I think there's, dare I say, a little bit more focus this season from the head man on down. Not that they're not focused, but I think there's urgency is the best way to put it. Fordham, W. Buffalo, W. Oklahoma, loss. My thing is Sparty and Northwestern. Northwestern's always a dogfight. It's always tight. It's always close. And it's a hell of a lot better going into that game on a win than a loss. So I'm anxious to see what type of response you get if you get beat by 30 or 13 or 3 by Oklahoma. How competitive are you in Oklahoma? Illinois, Elijah's the tone setter. Oklahoma's the measuring stick. How competitive are you against college football playoff team, potentially? How do you take that game? Do you show up and fight and trade punches and just get beat by better talent? Do you have more of a full game than a half like you did a year ago against Ohio State? Because I think that's what you're looking for against Oklahoma, isn't it? You're looking for more of a put together performance. And finish to the half, certainly, because you were in that Ohio State game a year ago for the first half until the final 3 minutes.
By God, you had a lead.
You had a lead, and you had a tie, and then they scored 10 straight. Turnovers helping with some of that 10, and then no pressure on Fields. Right? Back to yesterday's discussion about getting after the quarterback. Now, Illinois sets the tone because you can lose to Illinois and still beat Fordham and go beat Buffalo. But then, through your first 6, you could be 2-4. You've got to get to and through Northwestern minimum 4-2. Period. Now, it's not easy to pull out of a tailspin early in the year. You can get better. You can get better as a football team. I believe that. And I think the Michigan State game is going to be a big response opportunity. Sorry, just not giving your money or my money on Nebraska to go beat Oklahoma. Crazier things, yes, but I just...
To beat Oklahoma in Norman.
Right, with where they've been. That'd be really cool if they did. But no, Illinois is your tone setter, and Sparty is your chance to I guess, crawl up off the mat, assuming you get knocked out by OU. 4-2 minimum. I'm saying 5-1 possible. Anything's possible. Thank you, Kevin Garnett. But 5-1, I think I'm going to go from possible to doable. Am I crazy?
I'm going to say that
too optimistic.
My I don't want to even say best case scenario, because I can see a scenario in my head where Nebraska gets to 5-1, though I find that extremely unlikely. 4-2 seems like the one that makes sense to me. I look at the matchup against Illinois, first-year head coach. I know all the returning experience, but you still got to think Nebraska in year 4 under Scott Frost. You have some continuity. You're able to start at a further place than Illinois is able to start in the exact same amount of period of time.
You don't lose that game in year 4. You don't lose that game because it opens up 2 doors of doubt and a flood.
I don't think Nebraska looks convincing in that win. I think it's going to be closer than a lot of fans want. There's going to be some instances of Nebraska shooting themselves in the foot, and I think Nebraska is still going to pull it out, a 3-point win, a 6-point win, a win nonetheless. That's how I see it. Fordham and Buffalo, I don't want to overlook, but I'm going to overlook a little bit here.
You'll win.
I'll look at those games once we are to those games. But for now, there's more important games for me as a media member to be looking at. So Fordham and Buffalo, I'll chalk that up as a 3-0 start for Nebraska.
Sure.
Oklahoma, I think you look good against Oklahoma. I think you look better against Oklahoma than you did against Ohio State last year. I think this Nebraska team has gotten better, and I personally don't think that Oklahoma is better than that Ohio State team, simply because I don't think Spencer Rattler is as good as Justin Fields.
Perfect.
And in the world of college football, you're really only as good as your quarterback is. You can be great all around your quarterback, but if you have a liability at quarterback, you're not going to be in the college football playoff as long as it's still 4 teams. Really.
I think he's really good. Rattler's super, super talented. He's nowhere near polished or as poised at this point in his career, in my humble opinion, as what Fields was coming off of a college football playoff job against Clemson.
And this has some hindsight bias because, I mean, again, we got to see Justin Fields in the championship games last year. We got to see him in Bears camp, and all reports out of Bears camp sound like Justin Fields has been like a massive
really
improvement over Mitchell Trubisky. Sounds like he's been really good at that starting quarterback spot. And I just really don't think Spencer Rattler, after seeing what I saw last year, is going to make enough of a jump to be as good as Justin Fields. So, I mean, when I look at that Ohio State game last year, I think Nebraska was competing with Ohio State at all position groups aside from quarterback and wide receiver. Justin Fields tore apart Nebraska, and Ohio State's wide receivers tore apart Nebraska. And I think, I mean, Nebraska was closer than the final score would indicate to that Ohio State team last year, despite, I mean, Nebraska didn't look great last year. But I think whenever they were fired up, ready to go, had some momentum going into the season, I think that they played that Ohio State team tough despite the final score. And I think it's a similar thing for Oklahoma. They're going to play them tight. I don't think they pull out the win, but I think they're going to look better than you'd expect in a loss. And then when I look at Michigan State and Northwestern, I see that as a 1-1 type thing. Nebraska's got the potential to go 2-0 through there, but based on what I've seen the past 3 years from this Nebraska team, I'm expecting one of those to be a disappointing loss, not an embarrassing loss, but one of those games where you're watching on your TV and you kind of want to throw your TV at the TV screen, just because it's disappointing as a Nebraska fan to watch them have a performance. I'm not sure which team that comes up against, and I think you get a win in the other game. So I take 4-2, 3-3 minimum, 5-1 best case scenario, but I think 4-2 is much more likely than 3-3 or 5-1.
You are out talenting everybody through these first 6 games aside from Oklahoma.
I'd agree.
So that is why I think 5-1 is. It should be in the discussion. We'll get Mitch Sherman's take on that as we kind of look at the first 6 games in the regular season. Again, shout out to the Go Big Redcast folks with their Twitter question on this. So if I'm betting, I think 4-2 is needed. I think 5-1 also should be there. I don't think you go to Michigan State and drop it no matter what happens against Oklahoma. Blowout. If you lose on a last-second field goal in Norman, let's walk that hypothetical for a second. You can have emotionally draining losses. That's one thing we don't know about this team. We know with their experience, we know that the veteran people there's been a lot of games. There's been a lot of crazy losses. They've had some real heartbreakers, right? So they've experienced those. The bounce back can go either way. Do you get up off the mat and take it out on the next opponent, or do you wallow? Does a tough, tight loss beat you twice? And that happens in college football.
It's happened to this Nebraska team in the past 3 years.
It has, and you've not won more than 2 games consecutively. You haven't put a 3-game win streak together. You haven't put a 4-game win streak together. But you're momentum, your launching point, your tone setter for sure, Illinois. Your measuring stick is Oklahoma. And then your moxie, right? What are you made of? What are you mentally? We've talked a lot about mental toughness with this football team. You know, your mental toughness is tested for sure on the road the following weekend at Michigan State. And then the mother of all teams that makes you screw up or waits for you to screw up is Northwestern. And they do that to everybody, and they're really good at it. So there we go.
I'm not going to act like Nebraska isn't going to have those same mistakes they've made over the past 3 years. They're going to have those in games 1 through 6. I just think when I look at the teams across the board in weeks 1 through 6, you have a much better chance of being able to recover from those mistakes as opposed to in weeks 7 through 12.
Your margin for error, absolutely right on when it comes to level of opponent. Not that we're making out Nebraska to be like a playoff contender. We're talking about Nebraska as somebody that should find their way to the postseason. And to find their way to the postseason, they better go 4 or 5 and 4-2, 5-1 in those first 6. But they're at the point right now, year 4 for your quarterback, good offensive line. You figure they'll find somebody at running back, a bunch of skill guys. It'll take a while for the offense to gel. They shouldn't, or it shouldn't be expected that they absolutely hit the ground running like they've been in the offense all together for 3 years. No, they're not similar to the defensive side of the ball where they've all been together and they've kind of been building together. We'll get Mitch Sherman's take on things, get his thoughts also with the Big 12 and Pac-12. See how San Diego treated Mr. Mitch. Rick Kaczenski next hour. Dr. Petey, Derek Peterson in the 5 o'clock hour. It's Hail Varsity on a Tuesday, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Thanks for spending time on a Tuesday. Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We say hi to Mitch Sherman, who's back. Mitch Sherman with The Athletic. Find him on Twitter at Mitch Sherman. Mitch, how was San Diego? It's an incredible part of the country. How are you, man?
It's good to be back in Nebraska after a week in America's finest city. And I say that only because it's the name. It's the the slogan for San Diego. But to me, I'm in America's finest state. So, it's good to be home. Good to be back at preseason camp on Monday, and looking forward to tomorrow morning and watching some stretching and special teams drills.
That's right. The emphasis is on special teams, Mitch, for this year, and that's what's going to start off practice. So I want to go back to your story with The Athletic, and you kind of recapped yesterday's post-practice. And, what does a successful season look like for Garrett Nelson?
I think it involves more getting to the quarterback, more disruptive plays. For 2 years, I would say his primary value on defense has been to be a guy who generates a lot of energy. And when he's out there, absolutely as a true freshman, he benefited Nebraska defensively, and I would even say in other areas of the game with the zest and the hype, the emotion that he brought to the field. Garrett is old school in his enthusiasm, and he patterns himself after the guys who played before he was born and wore those black shirt jerseys. And he's getting to work with one of those guys or work around one of those guys, with Jason Peter now being involved with the defensive line. Garrett does some work with the defensive line. He's 262 pounds now. He's kind of outgrowing that outside linebacker position. He's more like a defensive end. And I think Nebraska's defense, as it evolves with Eric Chenander and the work that Tony Tuioti and Mike Dawson do together, it's a 3-4 in its base. But when you have outside linebackers like Garrett Nelson, Caleb Tanner played with his hand. You have young guys coming up in the program like Blaise Gunnerson, who is just naturally a huge guy. there are definitely some 4-3 tendencies in that defense. And if Garrett is effective this year, then, I think he's going to look somewhat like the old Nebraska outside linebacker rush end who got to the quarterback, playing at the line of scrimmage, even though, technically Nebraska's running out of a 3-4. So, he can go talk to Trev Alberts about that, because Trev was, the original outside linebacker who played like a defensive end in Lincoln.
I when we talk about weight and hand in the dirt, I think about Eric Martin, right? Think about Eric Martin.
Right.
And, 7.5, 8 sacks his senior season. They put some weight on Emart, and he was really nice coming off the edge. I mean, is that a decent comparison, perhaps, when it comes to what Garrett could do or his role, his specific role?
I think Garrett's bigger and more physical and stronger. Martin, when he did that, he was faster than the guys he was going against. I mean, you'd put him against an offensive tackle who outweighed him by 60 or 70 pounds, and if he got the first step, it was goodbye, and he was in the backfield. So I think Garrett has the ability to do that and get around an offensive tackle. We haven't seen it with consistency yet, but look at him, and I saw Garrett a few weeks ago. Was just in Lincoln and downtown, and Garrett was out going to get some dinner, and I thought I was looking at a nose tackle or something until I saw the face and realized that it was Garrett Nelson. And then, seeing him up close yesterday and talking to him and asking him how much bigger he is than just a year ago, I'm surprised it's only 10 pounds that he's gained from the time the season ended last year until he weighed in at the start of preseason camp. He said he was at 252 in December and 262 now. And I think some of that is breaking his body down, getting rid of, unwanted fat, and then building it back up with muscle. So he got more than 10 pounds of added muscle. He looks big and strong. Eric Martin, I think, is a great analogy as far as, what he can strive to do with his production. But I think he's a bigger, stronger, more physical guy.
Yeah, you say Eric Martin, and the number one name that I think of on the roster that reminds me of Eric Martin right now is Feldarius Payne, of also in that same mold. And it sounds like he's been doing some work on his body this offseason as well, and has been learning the playbook. So do you think Feldarius could be the type of impact pass rusher Nebraska needs on defense this year?
Yeah, he's definitely an option. They're going to have to find somebody, and I think the more this defense evolves, unless Nebraska is able to go and recruit that top 50 player in the country who's a traditional pass rusher from the defensive end spot, the kind of guys who project as first rounders, they're going to get it mostly from the outside linebacker spot. And they've recruited well there and have continued to find guys who are outstanding athletes. You look at some of the players in this last recruiting class. I think of like a Randolph Kapai, and you can see Ernest Hausman in the next recruiting class. These are the guys who I think are going to grow into the pass rushers at Nebraska. There's the possibility with both of those guys and some of the other outside backers that they could end up playing inside backer. I think Nebraska recruited them with the possibility to do both. But if they end up outside, I think that's where Nebraska is ultimately going to get the majority of its sacks from. And Payne, yeah, he fits that profile for sure as an outside linebacker. He didn't, he was not healthy last year. He didn't know necessarily what he was doing as he ran the defense. And still he was effective at times. So I think with the, and this was talked about in the spring and then again yesterday when he did his interview and when Mike Dawson did that, with a year under his belt in this program, I think he's one of the guys on the defense that you can look to and say that I expect to see a tremendous jump in his understanding and his production. And maybe he will be that guy who is the pass rusher that Nebraska needs.
Mitch Sherman's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Find Mitch with The Athletic and can follow him on Twitter at Mitch Sherman. Mitch, interested here as you look at the first 6 for Nebraska, the 6 games, road game, of course, at Illinois, road game at Oklahoma, road game at Sparty, and then you end that first stretch with Northwestern at home and Fordham and Buffalo dropped in there. What's a decent mark record-wise through that first 6? Are you again, 3 weeks till kickoff. We don't know who's healthy, who's going to be hurt. Hopefully nobody if you're a Nebraska fan. What's a good number? 4, 5 from a win total? What does it need to be for Nebraska?
I think you set your sights on 5 and you say you're ecstatic if Nebraska's 5-1 halfway through the season. I mean, that's great. That's getting really close to breaking that streak without a bowl. You feel great at that point about Nebraska's ability to play in the postseason. If you're at 4, okay, have a good second half. If you're at 3, that's where the trouble starts to come in. And I know in no way does Nebraska look at that stretch in the first 6 weeks and expect that 3-3 is an option. They need to be 4 or 5. And obviously 6 would mean a win over Oklahoma, which is probably not where this Nebraska program is at right now. But hey, strange things happen every year in college football. I would probably put my money on 4, but it's not out of the realm to be at 5-1. There's not a game there that you can break down and say, all right, Nebraska probably won't be an underdog. Depending on how things go, probably not going to be an underdog. And if it is an underdog, it won't be more than a 3 to 6 point underdog against Northwestern or Michigan State. And the other 3, you're going to see Nebraska as a favorite for sure.
Now, I noticed you did not say 6-0, Mitch. Well, what's with that?
Well, yeah, I said Nebraska's not in a place where it can expect to go into Norman, Oklahoma, and win right now with where it's at as a program. Look, Oklahoma has slipped up in the past, and this is not like going to Clemson or going to Alabama necessarily, although Oklahoma is going to be ranked right there with those programs. I don't know that Oklahoma has the physical prowess across its 22 players on the same level that Ohio State, Clemson, or Alabama does, but the Sooners can win those games. They can win those games in the college football playoff because of how explosive their offense is. If I'm going to play one of those 4 teams, and they're probably the 4 best programs in the country right now, if I'm going to play one of those 4 teams, especially in September, I'm taking Oklahoma. I mean, we've seen Oklahoma struggle in those environments. We've seen Oklahoma lose games in conference in those environments. So why not? Nebraska has not been the team for the last 20 years to pull off a win like that. Other teams that have similar profiles to Nebraska or lesser profiles to Nebraska. So why not? At some point, Nebraska has to win a game like that. I don't expect it to be this year. I don't expect it to happen. I don't think there's much of a shot that Nebraska's 6-0 halfway through the season, but it's early August and you can always dream.
Mitch Sherman's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Mitch, about a minute here. What's coming up from you on the Athletics? On the Athletic, what can folks be looking for?
Well, we'll have some offensive focused stuff later this week. Going to reset camp and the priorities a bit with Nebraska going to full pads on Thursday, and that will be mixed in with observations, whatever I can gather from the 20 or 25 minutes that are open at the start of that half padded practice tomorrow morning.
That'll be good. Mitch, you take care. We'll see you tomorrow, bud.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Take care. There he is, Mitch Sherman with us from The Athletic, and can find Mitch on Twitter at Mitch Sherman. And he's not wrong. I mean, K-State has drilled Oklahoma a couple of different times. Oklahoma is one of those, and they've done this over the years, not to get your hopes up or anything, but Oklahoma has been like the best 11-win squad for 100 years in a row. And they'll drop a game probably to Texas or their non-conference home and home. They were playing Ohio State, or mix in wow opponent, right, in Power 5. But they'll have that hiccup where Iowa State dings them. And that's not a knock on Campbell, but an Iowa State team that's not near as good as this Iowa State team would upset OU, or Colorado would whack them back in the day on a field goal. We'll dive into some more college football and the NBA All-Retirement team on the way.
Chime in 402 888-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me. Try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time. Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and plenty to dive into. Is Kansas on the Big Ten radar? What's the word out of Kansas City on that? We'll tell you in a moment. In less than 30 minutes, Dr. Petey, Derek Peterson with us, Hail Varsity, as he is now our Chicago correspondent. And we'll also spend plenty of time with Rick Kaczenski, a Tuesday with Kaz coming up. Things got flat out nasty in I have 3 degrees on my wall land, okay? When we talk about the Texas legislature, the Texas president, and how, well, just cutting it got yesterday when it comes to Texas, the Texas president, and members of the Texas, was that Senate or Congress?
Senate.
Okay, the Texas Senate. So I don't know if this gal, and I lost my place here. What was her name?
Oh, I don't.
Exactly. Somebody who's pissed at Texas.
I'll have it moment. I have it right here. It is Lois Kolkhorst.
Right, and Lois is with the Texas state government. Mm-hmm. And then this is the president of Texas answering questions about the departure. Enjoy this.
What's your athletic budget?
It's over $200 million. It's probably 220, 225 in that range.
Where does that put you in the U.S.?
Depending on how you count, probably first.
And that's without a winning football team of late.
It's in spite of our football team. We've been winning, just not like we like to win.
3-7 against the Horned Frogs. So maybe your fan base would rather lose to Alabama than TCU. So
that's Jay Hartzell, who got hit on both sides of the cheek with a steel chair from the Texas Senate on realignment. Man, that was nasty, but well done.
My question, and while she came off the top rope for sure, like that was just brutal.
It was sweet.
They
are 3-7 against TCU and the great perspirer.
But my question is she asks, where does that put you in the country? And he says, first, depending on how you count it. How do you count your athletic budget in a different way that would put it like that's completely unimportant to the topic, but like. How do you sidestep that question by saying, yeah, we have the biggest athletic department in the country, depending on how you count it? Like, just count the dollars and cents.
People answering questions and asking questions in that setting are marvelous. It's sidestepping or creating.
Oh, I've watched presidential debates. Yeah, I'm
they are skilled with their words. Barry Switzer says no worries at all this morning on OU and their transition to the SEC.
Every week I've said it's going to be like playing Texas, and of course Texas has been down some the last several years, but Texas has been the powerhouse on our schedule. I know that. We know that we're going to have to have our best every weekend. There's no, that everyone has improved in this league. Used to be, there's no Kansas here. I promise you that. There'll be no Kansas for us to play in football. So we've got to bring our game every week. But we know that, and our athletes know that, so we'll be up to that. We handled Florida. Florida can make all the excuses they want about, well, they didn't get the championship game or but we kicked their butts pretty good, and we went out and played well that night and in the bowl game. But it's we can compete with them. No one has competed with Alabama, and that's the big dogs, but we can play with Georgia. We can play with Florida. LSU is down. They had that one big run, but they've come back to earth. And so, it will be on the top tier. I promise you that.
Barry's not wrong. They can win game in, game out. But I think 11-1 or 11-2 may turn into 9-3. All right, for Oklahoma. But that'll be good enough in that league to get him into the playoff when you're expanding to 12.
Well, I mean, yeah, let's be honest, a really good team in the Big 12 is not necessarily a really good team in the SEC.
Well,
I mean, we saw some pretty good Nebraska teams who were doing really well in the Big 12 come right over to the Big 10, and while they were still pretty good, it didn't translate to any conference championships.
No, they were on the doorstep of it. But I'll say this: what's kept Oklahoma from advancing to the college football final hasn't been their offense. It's the fact that, okay, they score 45 against Georgia and allow 47. Is their defense going to get any better? That's always been their Achilles heel. I know the Grinch is down there, and he's pretty good. He's been everywhere. And we'll see if what Dean Blevins was telling us last week, where OU's been so close to getting some of that SEC-level defensive talent, but they've been unable to close the deal. They're still recruiting top 5, top 10 grade, but they've missed out on some of those difference makers at linebacker or in the secondary. Now that they're in the SEC shortly, we'll see if they can land some of those commitments. So let's get to the topic of Kansas.
Yeah, who just caught a massive stray from Barry Switzer in that one. There's no Kansases in the SEC.
Well, and that's all due respect. It ain't 07 and Fat Man ain't on the sideline anymore. Right? It's not 12-1 KU. So you have reports, or at least commentary, from folks that are around the Big 12 and specifically around Kansas athletics. And this is Mike Vernon, part of in past work with the San Francisco Chronicle, the Kansan, and also the Bleacher Report. He was on 610 Sports down in Kansas City. And you have what I'm hearing / message board talk out there that KU is 24 hours ago, like not part of this discussion with the Big Ten. Well, things may be closer to that. Listen, it'd be totally Kevin Warren to go get Kansas. But Barry Alvarez better say no. Great idea for basketball. I think Lance Leipold's awesome, and I think he'll do well enough in Kansas to get out of Kansas and find a better job. But you gain nothing, and you divide up the pie financially if you just add to add. The Big Ten can't do it. I know Kansas qualifies academically, and if we're talking 10 years ago with their football, basketball, combo, then let's talk about it. I mean, listen, if there's a way to get Kansas after you go get, assuming you want to add for way more money, some of those Pac-12 schools, or we're talking Notre Dame, sure. And you can react to expansion with your own expansion. But right now, you need to keep who you got happy. And that's job number one of the Big Ten and Big Ten commissioner. You keep Ohio State, you keep Michigan, you keep Penn State happy. That's it for me.
Yeah.
Not let's talk about adding Kansas.
Yeah, at the end of the day, Kansas isn't going to give you more TV revenue than you already have right now.
No, and listen, I know Kansas City's a nice market. Part of Nebraska's brand appeal is because, you can talk Omaha, you can talk Lincoln, you can talk nationally about Husker fans, but you've already got some viewership in Kansas City from Nebraska. I don't know if it's more than what Kansas would bring you, but I would like to think so. We'll wind down hour one next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Derek Peterson's coming up, HailVarsity.com and magazine. Good to talk to the good doctor from the Windy City. Get his take on some Husker football thoughts, some NBA, and all that good stuff. A Tuesday with Kaz on the way. Rick Kaczenski. Reminder, there's over 1,500 crashes each year in Nebraska involving an impaired driver, driving drunk, buzzed, or high. Never acceptable. Law enforcement officers are working every day to stop it before any more people are killed or injured. If you're going to drive, don't drink. If you do drink, designate that sober driver or get a ride share. Get a ride. Do it now. A DUI costs more than you think. Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. What does Melo have left in the tank? He joins the Lakers. You have Russ Westbrook there with LeBron and, of course, Anthony Davis. All name team, all career stats team Does it translate to making Greg Smith happy here the next round of the NBA playoffs? I don't like Russ as far as his game, his athleticism, yes. His shooting, no. LeBron is aging and still phenomenal. But Melo, I love Melo's game, how it's evolved, where he turned himself into a scorer and a three-point guy. But Melo's just such a liability defensively, right? I mean, he's always been kind of a volume scoring guy, and I'm quite frankly surprised. Name value, yes. But what's his level of game? What can he give you night in, night out? Is he a sixth man? Is he a guy that's going to handle a role maybe that he doesn't earn or that he can't earn to younger guys on that team? You had a lot of high name, high level chefs in this kitchen here.
To me, Carmelo Anthony is a great sixth man for a team that's going to be the 7 or 8 seed in the West, not a team that's trying to go for a title. I mean, look at this. Carmelo, 37 years old. LeBron's 36. Trevor Ariza is 36. Marc Gasol is 36. Dwight Howard is 35 and turning 36 right at the start of the season. Wayne Ellington, who's on the roster, is 33. Kent Bazemore's 32. Russell Westbrook's 32. Like, that is just a retirement team right there. But these guys aren't going to play anywhere else in their careers. Carmelo isn't going to play anywhere after L.A. Marc Gasol has already said that this is going to be his last year. Trevor Ariza
Russ has been renting versus buying. I mean, think of the moves he's been making, man. Washington, Oklahoma City, Houston. I mean, it's been everywhere.
It should be noted that since this show has begun, the Lakers also signed Kendrick Nunn, who is a little bit younger and provides a bit of a three-point shooting threat, and that's what they got in Bazemore and Ariza. The question is just, can these old dudes defend anybody?
Well, no is the answer, unless they are just crafty Saturday, Sunday morning pickup ball Manu Ginobili type, and I don't see that.
We're going to have to get Greg Smith's take on this next time we get recruiting recon, because he seems, from what I'm seeing from his Twitter feed, he seems excited by the moves the Lakers are making. And while I don't think they're bad moves, I think they're going to get the Lakers a 5 seed in the playoffs, a 6 seed in the playoffs. I don't think it's enough to get, I shouldn't bet against LeBron, but it doesn't seem like the type of roster that is going to be able to help a 36-year-old LeBron James make it to the NBA Finals again.
That's where they're at. I mean, they're just playing for rings, not what can we do, where can we put this. Has Melo won a ring as kind of a tag-along yet? He hasn't, has he?
He has not.
No, because, I mean, Melo was special for a while. Then he went through his tantrum period, and then he kind of fit in. I know he was in Portland. We'll see. We'll talk to Greg this week, see if he's ordered the home and away Melo jersey. Derek Peterson's on the way. Get his thoughts on Plutty. Hail Varsity Hour 2 on the way, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Hour 2, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And excited to spend some time with Rick Kaczenski. And APB is out for the good doctor, Derek Peterson. Dr. Petey from HailVarsity.com and magazine, now part of our Chicago bureau. We'll see if he chimes in or not. If not, we'll just reschedule another time. So do you see these Athlon mentions?
I'm stuck between a conversation with you and trying to find Derek Peterson, see what he's up to.
We texted him. He can call back. You got a voicemail to him, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So just give me a brief synopsis. I opened the article.
Okay.
And haven't got a chance to dive deeply into it. So give me a little synopsis here.
Well, it isn't good. It isn't great. Here's what the anonymous word is on Nebraska. Per Athlon, quoting this anonymous source, I think it's time to start talking about the bigger picture here. I don't think anyone expects Scott Frost to be on the hot seat right now. No one is talking about 2021 as a must-win year for them. At least you don't hear that on the recruiting trail. but they're so far from where they were expected to be. That's obvious. Got to start asking some serious questions. Why are you losing a star player to Kentucky? Your most talented offensive players are jumping ship, and it's because you put their film on and you can't find it. You can't find an identity. This is not me getting emotional. This is me hacking up a furball, so forgive me. That sounded very dramatic. It's not my intention.
People at home were thinking like, man, this guy cares.
No, I don't. I do, but I don't. I'm just telling you here what the anonymous guys in headsets are saying. Why are your top offensive dudes jumping ship? It's because you can't find an identity. This is not the UCF offense. It's not the frosted Oregon offense. Adrian Martinez is a great athlete, but he's not going to blow you away as a pure thrower. And his decision-making isn't always that great. Those are some arrows, and they're true. They're from Big Ten coaches. Right now, they can't claim to be a developer of NFL talent. A few years ago, they had 3 D-line at the scouting combine. And that was after a year that they couldn't stop anyone's running game. I'd describe their defensive personnel as world beaters on the hoof. They looked the part before the game. They're not elite yet. But they are their best. But they had their best year last year for sure, and they're going to play the run pretty well.
Can we try to guess which coach that was that said that one? Who would say on the hoof like that?
It's an older coach. It's a retired coach.
Okay.
Is my take. So who's there? I mean, and listen, I'm not accusing. I'm saying who's locked into the Big Ten and is talking with Athlon. Is it Urban? Is it Stoopsy? Is it Uncle Jerry? I mean, I don't know.
Well, we haven't even gotten to the last one yet. The last one's the one that's off the top rope, especially for Coach Frost. It's something isn't matching up inside this program. They don't have a cohesive identity. There are issues related to talent, but the questions all lead straight to the head coach.
It's fair. It's fair, and it's
that sounds like Urban to me.
Do you think? Let's play musical chairs with who is it? Who is it that's blasting Nebraska?
Urban gets like straight to the point whenever he says anything on Fox. So that's why that one is just straight to the point. Sounds like Urban Meyer to me.
Don't know. He's in the NFL, and he would have been, getting fined by the NFL when this interview would have happened. Right? Is he going to spend time on Big Ten personnel? There's a lot of coaches out there, but. Listen, you ask your question here. Why are players leaving? What are you identity-wise? What do you got at quarterback? What are you doing for Sundays? Are you developing NFL talent for Sundays? And is there a disconnect, right? Is there a disconnect from player to coach? I'll say this, and Kent emailed in. I always appreciate Kent's thoroughness. Kent says, Chris at HailVarsity.com, I'm more disappointed I haven't seen the conference adjustment factor, especially offensively. It takes 4 years to recognize that a ball control league, as your defense gets pummeled on the line for 12 to 14 play drives, you still try to score in 3 to 6 plays nearly every drive. And your head coach is too far removed to remember how he learned to play the game. Frustrating is an understatement. So that's from Kent, Chris at HailVarsity.com. Now, I think here's what I think you need to see as we get back to this. What's Nebraska going to look like through the first 6 games? You couple that with Athlon Sports and the anonymous assessment of the program. Listen, you need to see a ball control offense. You need to see an offense that runs the football. You need to see a quarterback that makes better throws. And if you're going to take a risk, be right with that risk. Make a big play with it. Don't turn it over on the wrong side of the 50. you can still see that in year 4. And are guys buying what the head coach is selling, guys that have been on the team? Maybe, maybe not. You hope so. But you can play for other people, right? You can play for your position coach. You can play for your teammate. You can play for your defensive coordinator. We'll talk to Coach Kaz here in a little bit. John's with us on Hail Varsity Radio. John, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
You bet. What's up, fellas?
Not much, man. What do you know?
Not much. Here's my take on it, and I might be old school, but any coach that goes anonymous and talks to the media trash about another team, you're a straight coward. I hope none of our coaches do that.
Fair enough. I mean, put your name to it.
Yeah. And my take on the team, I coached high school football for quite a while, and those coaches know exactly what their weaknesses are, better than anybody else. But I really think I really think we're going to have a good team, and now it's a head game. I think it's, do the guys believe they can win, and when you get in those tight games and we have some success, or anyway, it's all about whether we believe we can pull it off or not.
And John, you're right. You nailed it. You're right on the money, and they've got to have something good happen early in the year to kind of reinforce that question mark, right? Give you an answer and make that answer yes. So that's why Illinois is going to be incredible, because it could be a 3-point game. It could be a 10. Listen, Illinois has been both sides of the spectrum. You won a shootout after being down 14 points 2 years ago, right? And then you got just absolutely sledgehammered because you thought you'd roll your helmet out and win last year.
No, you're exactly right. Success early and confidence. I think if we have that, you're going to see this team improve exponentially, and they could be dangerous. I really think they could.
They've got the ability to be. John, you take care, bud. Good phone call. Appreciate you jumping on. 466-377-6800-825-5865.
Yeah, and confidence. That's the key this year. That was the big problem last year, in my opinion. There was some talent on that field last year, and I think there's more talent this year. The question is just, can they pull it all together?
I love the part of the anonymous coach here that talks about what they've got, and that's good against the run. They will be stout against the run. And you saw that last year, right? You saw that last year against Ohio State, against Iowa. You just need help from your offense. Absolute help from your offense, where they need to answer. Let's go to the phones again and get word from Paul. Paul, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, guys, I got to disagree with the last caller. I mean, if you want the straight stuff from these guys that know what they're talking about, you've got to give them the anonymity. Read it and analyze it for yourself. Mm-hmm. If you think it's a bunch of crap, well, then just ignore it. If you think they've got some kernels of truth, keep it in mind when you look at the next season.
Paul, question for you. What's your take? What's your assessment on this anonymous coach to Athlon? Do you think he's on the money with some points?
I have no idea. All I would say is that I am a loudmouth braggart who loves his Huskers like no other Husker fan in the entire State of the Union, including the territories. And I just want to tell you that, yeah, I think we got a good shot at getting to a decent bowl. Maybe come November, we might actually still be in contention for the West crown.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice if you're a Nebraska fan. Paul, thanks for the phone call.
Sure.
All right, there he is. Paul saying, you know what, brother? That'd be great. How fired up would you be if you're a Nebraska football fan and it's you, it's Wisconsin, and it's Iowa, and it's a round robin. It's a battle royale. It's a steel cage match. It's a death match. Whatever you want to call it, that's what you got, because you've navigated or you've stubbed your toe, whatever the case, with your crossovers, and it's on you guys to win, because that's how it comes. November, brother, is going to be this will be fascinating, These first 6 we've talked about, fascinating. What do you do against Illinois? What do you do against Oklahoma? How do you respond with whatever the result is, your final 2, road and home? Then here comes Michigan. You sneak in Purdue. Here's Ohio State. And then boom, boom, boom. You've got Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. I mean, the finish is going to be fun. The start could be fun. And you know what? You've heard a couple of different Husker fans, one that disagrees with the anonymity card on a coach assessing Nebraska football. And you've had, that's why folks are talking hot seat. That's why folks are questioning direction of the program. And it's okay to bring up connection. You know, something's not matching up inside the program. They've been strength and conditioned elitely, at elite level. You see how big and strong and physical they are. You just got to settle to the identity point. And we talk about this every year, and it's not a new script identity-wise, Elijah. It just isn't. But it's okay to do something different. And what have we kind of noticed about Coach Frost's commentary here? What I've read into is, all right, man, we've been in this league 3 years. We need different body types. Mm-hmm. Need different body types on the offensive line and wide receiver. You know, if you're going to change body types, it's okay to go to more of a ground and pound or downhill run attack versus what you were killing folks with because you got 90 plays. There's been some admissions of, all right, man, we've had to kind of gauge our neighborhood here and see what we need out on the front porch.
And, I mean, whenever you're taking over a program like Nebraska that's been down in the dumps for the past couple of years, sometimes you need a couple years of relationship building with the top talent. I mean, like, look how long they were after Thomas Fidone. It took them time to get Thomas Fidone into the boat. And the first recruiting class that Scott Frost had here was terrible. Let's be honest. Looking back in hindsight, 75% of them are gone now? Something ridiculous like that. So what's not matching up is the fact that Scott Frost was not bringing in talent that was going to be able to succeed in the Big Ten. Does he have that now? I think personally on paper, they're closer. Mm-hmm. They're a lot closer. And the question is, do they have the confidence? Can they just have the confidence to go out there and believe in themselves and go get a win?
You got to go do it. They've not done it. And through no fault of their own with the last 3 seasons, I mean, yeah, you got to go make plays, but you also got to be coached to be in position to do it too. It's a two-way street is what I'm saying between coaching and player execution and being ready for that moment, right? And there's been too many that have slipped away. So go do it.
Yeah, based on the preparation, what I've been telling my friends, I think it's my first time saying this on the radio, but I'll put it out there now, is I think Nebraska is more likely to exceed expectations this year than fall short of expectations, just based on the pure talent that Nebraska has brought in here and what people have been telling us about the guys that they have here in Omar Manning, Samori Toure, what Adrian is doing in his offseason conditioning program. The guys on defense that maybe didn't get as much playtime last year as they would have liked. They went to work this offseason. These are all the things I'm hearing, and I think it's more likely that if Nebraska can just find some confidence, they're more likely to exceed the expectations, which I would say, the fan base's expectations for the year is 6-6?
Well, that at a minimum, but back to headspace and confidence, that's got to kind of roll downhill. It's got to come from your head coach. It's got to come from the situation, and you have help. It doesn't have to all be on you as head coach. Yeah, it's your program. The buck stops with you. But you've got guys that have done well in their careers, specifically Coach Lubick, who we'll hear from tomorrow. But he's called a lot of plays, put a lot of game plans together. Not that you haven't or can't in your career, but sometimes 2 heads are better than 1. And listen, find a running back. I think you have God-gifted talent on the offensive line, and just run away and hit somebody. Make it 7-yard gains in 4th down. Win in time. Rick Kaczenski on the way. Tuesdays with Kaz next.
And we're back.
Fellas, you think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Back to it. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. It's time for Tuesdays with Kaz. We say hi to defensive line coach at Nebraska and Iowa, Rick Kaczenski. Kaz, what's good? Football's around the corner. How are you?
Hey, Doug. How you doing, man? Yep, right around the corner. Getting started. The games will be here before we know it. It's a good thing, man. But a lot going on in the evolution of college football these days. A little too much at one time, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting to see how this all going to play out.
Well, there's a lot we'll get to in a moment, but have you ever witnessed somebody get duct taped into their airline seat?
No, but I got to admit, I probably would have need the guy in his temple if I was there too. So he needed. I think that guy deserves what he got. I got to be honest with you.
No, you got this passenger that the scene floating around social media. Some hammered 22-year-old talking about his daddy's bankroll. And enough's enough, and it was the old Wolf of Wall Street scene. Instead of
nobody wants to hear some kid talk about how rich his dad is. So that kind of is a great lesson for the lad.
It sucks. They suspended the crew though.
Get what you deserve.
They suspended the crew. They suspended the crew for duct taping him.
I know, it's unbelievable. But that's the world we're living in, man.
Yeah.
And what can you do?
Kaz,
it's crazy on planes these days.
Oh, at least hopefully your flight will take off. It's been interesting there the last couple of weeks with travel. But Coach, I want to get your take here, Kaz, on just some red zone defense, and the thing is situational football. It's always been extremely important, and aside from not letting a team get to the red zone, what were you stressing to your guys defensively when that opportunity came up for a defense to kind of bow up? And I think of some great moments against Michigan, against Sparty, against Northwestern, where the offense of the other team's knocking on the door, and it's either 3 or no points or a blocked field goal. Huge, obviously, shot in the arm momentum-wise, and it keeps a tight game still in favor of Nebraska and Iowa at those times. But, take me through the confidence you instill, and then working guys to just fly to the football and know their assignment, but also play free.
Yeah, well, I think a big part of it, Schmidt, is the work you put in during the week and the film work. Everybody's responsible for certain sections of the field of play when you're doing scouting reports and things like that. And that red zone is always something that we did as a staff. Whether I was at Iowa with Norm and Phil, or with Bo and JP at Nebraska, we spent a lot of time with that. So a big part is knowing people's tendencies once they get into that area. Everybody has a sequence to how they call plays and to what they do once they get into the red zone. So the big part of it is just breaking it down and anticipating what teams do. A lot of teams, quite frankly, they do the same thing until they get inside the 10. So, from the 20 on in until the 11, you're just playing your normal defense. And a big part of that is breaking it down for the players where they understand that. Not necessarily what the coaches know. It's not what we know. It's what those guys know. And I think what our guys did a really, really good job of is being aware of the situation, knowing the formations, and anticipating what's coming. And you can roll the dice a little bit. You can gamble a little bit more. You got a shorter field down there, so you can pressure a little bit more. Guys don't have to cover in man quite as long, so you can heat people up. You can pressure people, but the big part of that is executing that. But red zone for us was something that we started to break down on Sunday night, and practicing it on Monday. And each each coach responsible for an area, talking about what this team likes to do. So you get what you emphasize in any sport, in anything, whether you're coaches or teachers. So you're going to get what you emphasize. So you obviously emphasize, not like, hey, that's more important than one area of the field, but you understand when you get down there, you got to keep them out of the end zone. So our guys did a really good job of that, I thought, at Nebraska and Iowa for sure. But a big part of that, Schmidt, is just give credit to the players. When you have good players, they make you look really good. And when you talk about those games, Eric Martin against Michigan, Vincent Valentine against Michigan, just blowing things up. Randy against Northwestern. I remember Miami got down there early on when it was a tight game in 2014. I think we had a sack, and then they ran a draw, and Malik had a tackle for a loss. One of the loudest and hardest hits I've ever seen. One of those you've seen you can hear from the sideline, and the place just went nuts. And it's just amazing how a play like that can just change the momentum and the confidence of a defense down there. So a lot of it has to do with the preparation, but a lot of it has to do with having really good players making you look good also.
Rick Kaczenski is with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Tuesdays with Kaz, a lot of talk about experience for this Nebraska 2021 team, and a lot of ball they've played together, and that mental jump for Saturdays, what you're doing Monday through Friday to translate it to Saturdays, and hoping you do it versus getting it done. And, as a coach, you can look at the young guys or guys that maybe are young from an experience standpoint, but maybe have been in the program a while. And guys learn at different paces, and there's different levels of trust. I want to talk to you a little bit about that 2014 D-line and that 2013 D-line because they were the same. And with your level of trust in those guys, because you had a lot of young pups that were playing good ball, but they still had to prove to themselves and prove to you that they were ready come game time. What's that like for you to kind of mesh that trust together, where you go out on the field, do your job, we know you've got the ability to do it, but you got to prove it, versus some mistakes that may happen, that kind of patience you got to have?
Yeah, well, there wasn't a whole lot of patience. Really, what you have to do as a coach, if a guy is physically ready to play, it's your job to get him mentally ready to play, and then you do what you got to do from there. Mm-hmm. You can't ever coach down to the group.
Okay.
You can't coach the young guys a certain way and the older guys, the veterans, a certain way. You have the same expectations. I was played for coaches, and the way I coached was if you lower the expectations, people will meet them. So I expected and I demanded that whether you were fourth or fifth year in the program, you were a freshman, you needed to know, you needed to have the knowledge. And that's X's and O's. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now what you can't replace is the game day experience. You can't replicate running out of, in front of 90,000 people in a tunnel, away game, with a 22-year-old guy, and you're playing high school football, 6 months earlier. You can't replicate that, but that's why you coach hard in practice. Mm-hmm. That's why you set standards. That's why you demand the discipline that it takes to get on the field. But there's no way that I was going to teach a freshman the game differently than I was going to teach a veteran. Mm-hmm. But when you do a good enough job teaching, what helps you is these veterans help you. The veterans become the coaches. They understand what to expect. They know what's going to be tolerated. It's a little bit easier coming from a peer. Peers recognize when a guy has something special. It didn't take long for people to realize when Malik walked on campus, hey, this dude's pretty good. All right, I'm going to take him under my wing. Don't do what I did. This is what you need to do. This will make you better. Don't make that mistake. Guys are going to make mistakes, absolutely, on the field. But, that trust, that trust comes putting them into the fire and see how they respond. And, how they respond when they have the knowledge of the offense, of the formations, of the situation, of the backfield sets, and they can anticipate and play fast, they're going to make less mistakes. Because there's no way in hell you can line up and call a defense or call a pressure and get the right guys on the field. To have 11 guys you can trust by pulling one guy out who knows a little bit of the defense, pulling another guy out that knows a little bit of the defense, and putting this guy in who might not be as dynamic. Let me tell you, if you got a guy who can make plays, it's your job as a coach to make sure he's ready to go on Saturday. So I never ever used being young as an excuse. If they're ready to go physically and mentally, it was my job to get them ready to go. It was my job to teach them the defense. It was my job to put them in position to be successful, technique-wise and also assignment-wise. So, I never, ever changed the way I coach. And I think that's why a lot of the guys that I had the fortune of coaching in the different systems play a lot of football long past their college years. Because when you go to the NFL, they ain't teaching a rookie. It's the rookie's job to learn the defense if they want to play. Nobody's sitting with you and saying, "Oh, we'll take your time." Now, you either you are or you aren't. And if you are, and you got to get that guy ready to go. And when you recognize talent, you recognize physical ability. All right, look at Randy Gregory. I mean, it was my job to make sure he knew the defense. Okay, got paid a lot of money to make sure I was going to figure it out. We were going to figure it out. Because how do you keep a guy off the field that is that dynamic? So when I hear coaches talk about, algebra 2 or calculus or teaching a kid this or, now you got veterans, that to me, that's all BS. That's built-in excuses. You get it done and you figure it out. If you got a good player, it's your job to get him on the field. It's your job to make sure he's successful. That's how I was taught. That's how I always coached. That's the responsibility. That's the onus is on the coach to get the players ready.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back into it, Hail Varsity Radio. A few more minutes. Rick Kaczenski here talking college realignment.
I was fortunate. I worked for some great head coaches and played for a great head coach. Never blamed the players. Never. It's your job. I don't want any players aren't dumb. Don't tell me they can't learn it. If you lower the expectations, they'll meet them. If you demand, all right, guys want discipline. I just had this talk with Malik. We were texting yesterday. Guys want discipline. That's what they want. They want guidance. They want to be held accountable. They want that, no matter what level, whether it's 8-year-old football or whether it's the NFL. Guys want that. It's up to the coach. And the players know what the coach is putting into them. They know it. They know it. They might not know it at first, but the players know. Players can read coaches. They know if it's about the coach or if it's about the player's success. And that's the great thing about football. On both ends of it, player, coach, it's the ultimate exposure game.
Rick Kaczenski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Let's dive into the old conference realignment. Somebody in SEC land throwing out a grenade yesterday about Clemson and FSU perhaps seeking membership. I don't know that Clemson would. Clemson's great, and they got it made right now. Florida State, they're trying to kind of climb back up, and they've been through a number of coaches and changes. I can see the SEC wanting to add those two, but I don't know that if you're Clemson or Florida State, Clemson specifically, and I know they're kind of near where you're at, there's no way they jump to what sense would that make, Cass, for them to have to go navigate through the SEC East or SEC West to get where they're already going?
No, and that goes back, that conversation goes back to when Coach Ford was here.
Okay.
In the back in the 70s, they wanted to join the SEC, and Coach Ford told them they're crazy. I have the fortune of being around him a lot over the last few years, and And, like you said, you can roll the ball out and win 10. When he was there, when they played, 10, 11 games a year, you roll the ball out and win 9 because you got to be a fool to join the SEC. And then also, too, I mean, it's, when you look at the ACC and the SEC, the brand identity, ACC for private schools, I think, it's a different type of conference. You don't have the big schools like you do in the SEC. They're a little bit behind. I think it was Swofford before he left. People always look at it, keeping conferences together where people can't leave. But it's also where the ACC put together where they can't kick anybody out either. Being down here, I think Clemson came out, the university came out, they had a spokesperson come out and say, hey, that's all BS. Mm-hmm. That's not true. Clemson's not reaching out to anybody. I can promise you that. Clemson's a place that people reach out to them. If that happens, I can't imagine it happening. Plus, also, the grant of right. For example, if Clemson were to leave after the 21 season, the SEC would owe the ACC $390 million.
Wow,
that ain't happening. Yeah. So the grant of rights goes through 2035. So I think what makes sense right now is them to take a run at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's NBC contract is coming up, and that's peanuts. That pays absolutely nothing. I think that's $15 million a year. So I think with the ACC, what would make sense if Notre Dame would do this, try to pull Notre Dame in, parlay some of that NBC money, but NBC's got to step up to the plate, or Notre Dame will definitely be looking for a new network. 15 mil. That's pocket change in the world we're living in.
Well,
in these days, so
sure.
I think what you'll see with Clemson and you'll see with the ACC. I mean, and it's natural. Obviously, you look at this past year with Notre Dame and Clemson. Notre Dame and the ACC, it was kind of a natural fit. All the other sports, with the exception of football, are in the ACC already. So I think that's what the ACC is kind of concentrating on right now. But I would be absolutely 100% shocked if Clemson were to or Florida State would move over to the SEC.
Kaz, a thought on a report out by The Athletic about the Pac-12 and Big 12 having some chats. Don't know if it was coffee, don't know if it was tea, don't know if it was an old-fashioned, but they're just chatting. So, and I'm wondering if it's not about completely merging. I wonder if it's, if our big teams get rated and your two got rated, do you want to start dating?
Gosh, well, Schmidt, I think that's what's crazy right now is you got so many major things happening at one time, and it's unprecedented in college football. I mean, you're kind of like a ship without a captain right now. You're just kind of floating in between the name, image, and likeness, the conference realignment, the playoffs. I mean, those are three. The playoff expansion. You got three major deals going on that are going to affect the game. I mean, this isn't down with the horns 15-yard penalty. I mean, these are actions that are happening that are going to change the game during our lifetime. So and when those things happen, you're going to hear all kind of rumors until, like Clemson. That's why I know when Clemson comes out and says through a university paid spokesman, we didn't reach out, I believe it. All this other stuff right now with their hit pieces, and I understand them. I read it too. But just like Texas and Oklahoma kept the secret for about a year, this just didn't happen over a 3-4 week period. Mm-hmm. I guarantee people have been talking for a long, long time. There's all kind of scenarios out there, and ultimately it's gonna come down to money. But in my opinion, I think, I would love to see the Big Ten expand out west. To me, that makes more sense than a Big 12 and a Pac-12 expansion. To me, take the Big Ten and, go get Oregon, go get Washington, go get Southern Cal, go get Stanford. Let's go Big Ten. And, then who cares what those other guys do. But, man, there's just a lot happen, a lot to take in, especially at the beginning of football season. We're talking about everything but football. And I hope this stuff doesn't take away from the product on the field or how the product is going to be covered. Distraction, because I don't think it'll be a distraction to the players, but I just think that right now, you got to start a camp, and all everybody's talking about is all these things that are happening off the field that really have no effect of the upcoming season. So it'll interesting times, but I think that just kind of shows you how dead the NCAA is right now. Greg Sankey's kind of taking the bull by the horns, and I wouldn't be surprised if Barry's behind the scenes and some other power players. I think there's a lot of things going on right now that people don't know about, that they don't want you to know about, but there can be some major things happening here in the next year of college football, I believe. And I think it's going to be great. I think people will benefit. I just think right now there's so much to take in. There's so much uncertain. Man, it's just confusing for everybody. But I think when it's all said and done, what I like about this right now, you got football people, you got athletic people, making decisions, I think, right now. You don't have Mark Emmert making a decision that affects Binghamton and Alabama in the same way, right? We're starting to get a little bit separation, saying everybody's treated equally, but not everybody's treated the same. And I think that's where Sankey's coming in, and these players and these athletic directors. It is big business, and they understand that.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Final thought here as we wind down a Tuesday with Kaz, Rick Kaczenski on Hail Varsity Radio. And last thought here from Kaz on who's going to be making the calls here, the input from conference realignment.
Let's let people make decisions that have been in the arena, that understand how to make these decisions without just reading a notebook of notes and bullet points on how much money each conference is making and what rules we should have and what rules we shouldn't. So I think that's the direction we're going, and that's about all I know right now, about the same as you, Schmitty, which isn't much. I know I don't like old fashions, but I got a feeling you do.
Well, I'll drink one, Kaz, especially if you're buying. So.
I won't buy one, but if you're buying, I'll never turn down a free drink. But
well, I will get you one. I will get you one.
If I can make a request, it wouldn't be an old fashioned. Not too many people know how to make them either.
Well, not right. I mean, Don Draper, and that's about it. I mean, there you go.
Yeah, that's why you just go straight bourbon. Just make it easy.
Just give me a little ice. There we go. Rick Kaczenski with us. Kaz, you're awesome. It was fun to spend some time today. Thanks for a few minutes.
Buddy, thanks for having me on.
Gotta love Kaz. Love our Tuesdays with Kaz. Good stuff from him. So we have found the elusive Dr. Petey, Derek Peterson, our Chicago correspondent. He'll be in tomorrow. Phone issues. We won't get into Android versus Apple because, well, he may not like that. Good stuff today. Awesome to get caught up with Mitch Sherman. And then love your phone calls. Plenty of email to get into tomorrow. So we'll do that. Plenty of thoughts from Coach Lubick tomorrow as first part of practice is open in the morning. And then Coach Austin and Coach Lubick both tomorrow. And we'll hear from them. And Mike Babcock, Mike Schuhart loaded up for you on a Wednesday. So today's an odd day for me. Dad, my father, would have been 71 today. A year ago, he made the biggest plate of ribs with some jalapeno as we celebrated. So we are going to celebrate tonight in his honor, getting together with my mother and my dad, my wife and son, and my nephews, are going to be over. And, Dad's still paying for it. Is what I can smile about. But we love you, Joe Papa, and miss you, bud, and happy heavenly birthday. So that's it's been on my mind a lot, especially with this football season coming up. And last year, but we're thinking about him. And thanks to so many of you who've reached out on social media to remember my dad. And I had to post a picture of him, and he did this. We talk about Fan Day. He got a crazy picture of him going cross-eyed. This is pre-Miller Lite, I promise you. Because the joke with his softball buddies was that he was the long-lost twin of a throwback linebacker called Mike Knox. There was some photography done with both of them. So that's out on social media. Give Elijah a follow at Herbal Essence, Chris Schmidt at Schmidt_radio. Give us a rating. Tell us what you think of the podcast. iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Hail Varsity Radio, and good stuff. Closer to camp tomorrow, the offensive side of the ball speaks. We're back at it at 4 with Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.